Hey everyone, glad you're back. Today I've got a few stories that genuinely kept me up at night. Real experiences from real people that are hard to shake. Drop a like, subscribe if you want more, and let's get into it. I found a thread on an old forum about my neighborhood. The posts update every time I refresh, and they're about me. This is one of those posts that hits different when you realize what you're actually reading. Watched in the Wood came to r/let's not meet with something that genuinely defies easy explanation. And by the time you get to the punchline, your skin crawls. Let's back up to where this started. I'm not even sure how I ended up on Xylea that day. It's this weird niche image board that supposedly went dark years ago, abandoned, not deleted. Sometimes you're falling down a rabbit hole at 2 a.m. and you click on something from an old thread just to see if it's still there. It was. I scrolled through mostly out of curiosity. Most content was ancient, posts from 2018, 2019, but one thread caught my eye. It was titled The Neighborhood and listed observations about a street. My street. The coffee shop on the corner, the park with the broken fountain, the apartment building with the weird turquoise door. I figured old posts from someone local, bookmarked it. Came back 2 days later. New posts had appeared, fresh timestamps. 6 new replies in 48 hours. Detailed observations about people here, what they bought, when they left for work. One even had a photo of the park from an angle I recognized. I scrolled back up. That's when I saw it. Female, appears mid to late 20s, usually brown jacket. Stops at Delmont Coffee 6:15 a.m. most days. Buys the same order. Oat milk latte, everything bagel. Showered at 6:47 a.m. this morning based on wet hair. Been watching this one for a while now. She doesn't know. 3 days ago I wore that jacket to Delmont. Ordered exactly that. Showered at 6:47 because my alarm went off early. I stared at that post for a long time. That's the hook. That's where this goes from weird old forum post to something that actually makes your mouth go dry. And Watched in the Wood still had so many more posts to scroll through, each one more intimate and specific than the last. So I sat there rereading the thread over and over. Each time I hit that last line, been watching this one for a while now, my stomach dropped harder. This couldn't be real. But the shower time, the exact outfit, the grocery store, how could anyone possibly know that? I refreshed the page. 30 seconds. A new post appeared. Not old, fresh, today. 6:32 p.m., grocery run on Jefferson Avenue, blue jacket. I'd been at that store at 6:15. I wore a blue jacket. They listed the exact brands I bought. My hands were shaking. I went back through the thread, scrolling from the beginning. 8 months of posts. Every single one a detail from my life. Shower times, when I left, when I came home, what I wore. And then I realized something that made it even worse. I think I know who it is. Someone I see every day. The first comment started rolling in. This is genuinely horrifying. Please tell me you saved screenshots and contacted police immediately. This is documentary evidence of criminal stalking. Do you know what image board it was? Was it still active when you reported it? This could help track the IP or trace the user account. It was called Xylea, a forum that supposedly died in 2019 but apparently never fully shut down. The thread was archived from 2020, but recent posts are from the last few months. I saved everything and gave it to the detective. Forum host refused to respond. I'm not even sure who runs it anymore. It felt like reporting something that shouldn't exist. Then OP made a follow-up post. I figured out who was posting, and it's someone I see every day. I've been staring at timestamps all night, cross-referencing with my phone history and location data. There's only a 15-minute window where each observation could have been made. The person had to be near me, near my apartment at very specific times. I started going through faces, neighbors I barely know, gym regulars I see once a month, the same cashier at my grocery store. And I realized I've seen the same person at almost every location on those timestamps. Not in a way that seems normal, positioned like they're watching. I can't say who yet, but I see them now when I close my eyes. Every time I go outside, I see them. They're not even trying to hide anymore, or maybe they never were and I was just oblivious. I don't know which is worse. Every trip outside feels like walking through a cage. This is where everything spirals for OP. Not just the horror of being watched, but the realization of how long it's been happening. I went back through the archive methodically, scrolling from earliest posts forward. The thread started 8 months ago. 8 months! And I hadn't even known it existed until yesterday. The first posts were vague, but then they got detailed. Specific. They were describing me. All of it. By month 2, they had my shower schedule down to the minute. 6:47 a.m. on weekdays, later on weekends. Notes about which days I showered at night. They mentioned the shampoo bottle visible through my bathroom window. Then midnight snack runs. Late nights when I couldn't sleep, all documented. My clothing, the hoodie, sweatpants, the pizza place I hit at 2 a.m. on Thursdays. Month 5, they started noting my therapy appointments, my outfit descriptions, the blue jacket I always wear on Thursdays, my walking route from my car to the building, even the therapist's office number, shopping patterns, grocery store visits, the coffee shop I hit on Sunday mornings, what I bought, what I wore, days I went out versus stayed in, all of it logged, deliberate. The posts got more confident. Less observation, more like documentation of a routine they'd completely mapped. I felt sick. This wasn't casual. This was someone who knew my schedule better than I did. The Reddit comment section exploded. Everyone was trying to piece together what kind of person could do this, how methodical they had to be. The shower schedule detail is what makes this truly terrifying. They've identified your most vulnerable moment. They know exactly when you're naked and defenseless. This person has been planning something. Exactly. 8 months of logging specific times, routines, clothing details. That's not casual observation. That's active surveillance by someone who knows the building, works a shift that lets them watch, and has an actual fixation on this person. I genuinely think OP should consider moving, or at minimum installing serious security. And with each comment, the weight of it got heavier. This wasn't a ghost story or a prank. This was real surveillance. Documented, obsessive, and someone living in her neighborhood knew everything. OP made the call and walked into the precinct with everything. The full thread, all the screenshots, every timestamp. I figured out who was posting, and it's someone I see every day. I took everything to the police station. The thread, timestamps, all the screenshots. The detective started skeptical until he actually read through it. His face changed when he saw the level of detail. 8 months of observations. Shower times, grocery brands, routes I take. Things nobody else would know. He brought in a second detective. They both just stared. I told them everything. About finding the forum, how posts update in real time, how I'd see new observations within minutes of doing things. The detective asked if I felt safe at home. I didn't. That night I bought blackout curtains, heavy, light-blocking ones. Put them in every window. Changed my entire routine. Different coffee shop, different times, different routes. I stopped my therapy appointments on their regular day. I watched everyone now. Then I checked the forum again. The thread was still there, but the posts had stopped. The last entry was the day I filed the report. No new observations, just silence. That's when it hit me. Not that someone had been watching, but that they knew. They knew I'd gone to police. They knew I'd figured it out, and they stopped. The comments that followed were people understanding what the silence actually meant. Dead image boards sometimes keep threads alive with bots, but new personal observations being posted means someone's actively checking and posting. This is absolutely premeditated surveillance. The watcher didn't disappear. The watcher acknowledged. And that was worse. OP came back a few days later with an update post. I figured out who was posting, and it's someone I see every day. I've been replaying the police report meeting in my head on loop. The detective showed me their analysis. They'd traced the Xylea posts back through a VPN, but the IP pattern kept hitting the same coffee shop around 4 p.m. every single day. I checked my calendar, and I'm not exaggerating. Every single day. Same exact time, new posts appeared. So I did something probably stupid. I went to that coffee shop and just sat there, watched people come and go, and then I saw her. Sarah from 2 blocks over. I've passed her on the street maybe 100 times throughout the years, never even registered her face. But as I sat there watching the faces, it all clicked into place like a puzzle snapping together. The grocery store when I shopped, the gym when I walked past at 7 a.m., the bus stop sometimes, the park where I read. She was always there, always watching. And I started thinking about the shower. All those times I'd been in my apartment, in the shower, getting dressed, completely exposed to the world from my windows, while she was out there documenting every single thing. The posts weren't just observations, they were a map of my life, a catalog of my routine and movements, proof that nothing I do in my own space is actually private anymore. I'm not staying here. I've already transferred to a gym across town. I'm rerouting my entire existence to avoid her blocks. And I don't think I'll ever feel safe the way I used to. The comment section filled up immediately. Most of it was rage, at Sarah, at the system, at the fact that nobody had seen this coming. Install outdoor cameras immediately pointing out from your windows. If you can identify who this is, you have an airtight harassment and stalking case. Document everything. What stays with you is a different kind of dread, not jump scares or gore. It's the knowledge that the ordinary world, the streets you walk, the stores you shop in, your own apartment, has become hostile without your knowledge. Someone was there the whole time, watching, taking notes, building a record, and you were just living, just existing, thinking you were safe. That's the real horror. That's what makes it stick. On to the next one. My family insists I've been calling them every single Sunday for 5 years. I have no memory of making a single call. This one started like a glitch, but glitches don't know your voice, your secrets, or the exact time you're sleeping. I'm 27, and I've got a normal life. Work, friends, routine. My family and I have always been close, which is why this whole thing is so messed up. Last week, my mom called me out of the blue, asking why I'd been distant during our Sunday calls. I was confused. I asked her what Sunday calls she meant. She said I've called every single Sunday without fail for the past 5 years. I have no memory of this, not a single call. I told her she must be thinking of someone else, but then my dad got on and backed her up. My younger sister, too. All 4 of them insisted I've been calling religiously every Sunday for 5 years. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I pulled up my phone records. Nothing. Not a single outgoing call to my family. No texts either. Just blank space where these supposed calls should be. I asked them what we talk about during these calls. They knew things. Details about my job that I've never told them. Conversations I had with my therapist. Embarrassing moments from my past that only I know about. But here's the thing that made my stomach drop. My mom mentioned something in passing. She said, "You always call around 10 at night. I know because you sound so tired, like you've just woken up." I take Ambien most nights. It knocks me out hard, and I live alone. So OP did the reasonable thing. Checked the records, found nothing. Then came the details that didn't make sense, secrets this imposter shouldn't know, and the Ambien detail. The realization that something had been calling from inside their own life, using their own voice while they slept. And that's where the real horror sets in. Not in the unknown calls themselves, but in the fact that this imposter, whoever or whatever it is, had access to OP's innermost thoughts, the things you never say out loud, the vulnerability that's supposed to stay private. Someone had stolen it. So OP did what anyone would do. They went back and checked again. And again. And again. Spent the entire next day in a paranoid spiral, pulling up call logs from AT&T, from the carrier website, from their phone history going back 5 years, checking every possible angle, every backup, every record they could think of. Nothing. 0 incoming calls. 0 outgoing. It was like family didn't exist in the phone's memory at all. The not knowing was eating them alive. Finally, they bit the bullet and called their mom back, with dread already building. My voice was shaking before I even started. "Mom, I need you to tell me everything this person says to you. Everything. I don't care how personal it gets." Long silence. Then, "Honey, I don't think you understand what we're dealing with here. They know things. They know things about your life that you've never told anyone. Not us, not your friends, nobody. My stomach dropped. She started listing them off. The prescription for anxiety I've never mentioned to a single family member. A specific fight with an ex 3 years ago. Not just that it happened, but the exact words he used when he hurt me the most. Details about a job performance review I kept completely private because it was humiliating. A medical procedure from 5 years back that I've never disclosed to anyone in my family. I couldn't breathe. Whoever this person is, they know my inner life. They know my secrets. They know my shame. They know things locked inside my head that exist nowhere else in the world. Not in emails, not in messages, not written down anywhere. How does he know all that? I whispered into the phone. She, honey. It's a woman. She sounds exactly like you. That's when horror crystallized into something undeniable. This isn't a random prank. This isn't a wrong number or mix-up. Someone has methodically mapped my entire inner world, the hidden parts, the ashamed parts, the vulnerabilities I've never shared with a living soul. Someone has called my family every single Sunday for 5 years, and somehow knows me more intimately than I know myself. And I still had no idea how any of that was possible. The panic was setting in now, and fast. But OP couldn't let it go. And the deeper they dug, the clearer it became that this wasn't random. This was methodical. I started keeping a list. Every time my family mentioned something the Sunday caller told them, I documented it. Medical stuff first. They mentioned my current antidepressant dose, the exact one, brand name, milligrams, everything. I never told my family what I take. I've never posted about it online. Then came relationship details. My girlfriend and I had a huge fight 3 weeks ago about moving in together. Private conversation, just us. But the caller told my mom about it. Told her he's scared of commitment. Used those exact words. My embarrassing moments started appearing. How I bombed a presentation at work last month, froze up mid-sentence. How I had a panic attack at my college friend's wedding because of my ex being there. Childhood trauma stuff I've never breathed to anyone. But the pattern that broke me was the timing. The calls always came on Sunday mornings between 9 and 10 a.m. Always. For 5 years, without fail. And I started noticing something worse. Every Sunday when I'd check my Ambien receipt history, there was a pill missing from my current pack. Like clockwork. This person wasn't just calling. They were being inside my apartment while I slept. They knew my fears. They knew my secrets. They knew my exact vulnerabilities, and they were using all of it. The scope of what this person knew was overwhelming, and the comments that came in weren't reassuring either. The voice synthesis receipt is the smoking gun. You need to get to the police with that receipt and your building's ring footage immediately. This is serious. Have you ruled out Ambien-induced fugue states? Those memory gaps on Sunday mornings could be a medical issue rather than evidence of her being in your apartment. I checked with my doctor. Ambien doesn't usually cause full blackouts like this. But more importantly, the calls happen every single Sunday for 5 straight years. That's too consistent to be random sleep episodes. When I asked my dad directly if the voice sounded like me, he said yes at first. Then I played him a recording of me reading the exact same words. He got quiet and said the Sunday voice was thinner, less real. Like someone performing being me, not actually being me. 3 days later, OP came back with an update. I identified the caller. She's my neighbor. I think I finally know who's been calling me. My neighbor moved into the apartment next to mine exactly 5 years ago, the same week the calls started. I never put the pieces together until last night. While looking through her recycling, I found a receipt for voice synthesis software, professional grade, dated 4 years ago. I pulled my own voice memo and compared it to recordings from my family. The waveforms match. She's cloned my voice. But there's more. She looks like me. Not identical, but close enough to be unsettling. Similar hair, face structure, height. She's methodically learned everything. How I talk, what I care about, family secrets I never told anyone. She's been pretending to be me for 5 years, and I have no idea if it's just the Sunday calls. Has she texted people as me? Done this to others? What if this is how she lives, stealing other people's identities while they sleep? I'm terrified. I don't know if I should go to police, confront her, or just run. I can't even leave my apartment without panicking. The comments came in fast. She moved in exactly when the calls started. That's not coincidence. She deliberately targeted you and has been studying you for 5 years. The fact that she learned your mannerisms, your voice patterns, your intimate secrets over 5 years, this is predatory surveillance. She built a complete duplicate of you. If this goes to court, you need chain of custody. Contact your landlord and file a report first, then let law enforcement pull footage. Don't access anything yourself or it could get questioned. OP's response landed the real horror. The fact that she learned your mannerisms, your voice patterns, your intimate secrets over 5 years, this is predatory surveillance. She built a complete duplicate of you. The worst part? I have no idea how many times she's impersonated me beyond those Sunday calls. Has she texted people as me? Done this to others? What if this is how she lives, stealing other people's identities while they sleep? Then OP came back a few days later. I identified the caller. She's my neighbor. I'm 27 male, and I've known who she is for 3 days now, and I still haven't gone to the police. I keep telling myself I will. I have documentation, the voice synthesis receipt, the phone records, everything. But there's a paralysis in knowing that someone has been inhabiting your life while you slept. For 5 years. That's not 12 incidents. That's not a few slip-ups. That's 260 calls where someone who looks like me, sounds like me, maybe even moves like me, told my family intimate things they believe came from my mouth. How much of my life has been spoken for me? How many versions of me have they constructed? I called my therapist yesterday. She said I should file a police report today. I haven't. Part of me wants to confront the neighbor directly, demand answers. Part of me is terrified of what I'll find in that apartment. Mirrors, maybe, or cameras, or voice recordings of me I never made. Another part of me keeps circling back to the same question. When did I stop being me? At what point did I become a story that someone else was telling my family? I'm not safe in my own apartment anymore. I'm not sure I was ever truly alone. The comment section didn't hold back. Please don't confront her alone. Document everything, contact police, and get to a safe location. This is obsessive impersonation, and it can escalate extremely fast. Voice cloning software, movement mimicry, intimate knowledge, living in your apartment building? This is not stalking, this is identity theft. The premeditation here is terrifying. What haunts this story isn't just the violation, it's the unmeasured scope of it. OP doesn't know if 5 years is the whole truth, or if it began before they ever noticed. They don't know which conversations were real, which versions of themselves exist in their family's memory as imprints of a stranger. Identity theft used to mean stolen credit cards and fraudulent loans. This is something far more invasive, the theft of presence, of voice, of the fundamental right to be the only one speaking from inside your own life. On to the next one. I got in a taxi in Barcelona, and the driver had a photo of my dead grandmother on his dashboard. He said her name before I even sat down. Here's a story about what happens when a stranger knows your ghosts. Heading to Barcelona alone, not for vacation, but to get away from everything in her life back home. The week started normal enough. The flight was long and empty of thought, the crowded, sterile airport, and she grabbed the first available taxi without hesitation, without thinking, without knowing she was about to meet someone who knew her bloodline. I landed in Barcelona on a Wednesday afternoon. The flight was 6 hours of mindless movies and recycled air, exactly what I needed. All I wanted was to check into my hotel, shower, and disappear into the Gothic Quarter for a week where no one knew my name. At the airport, I didn't wait in lines or call ahead. I grabbed the first available taxi in the queue, a worn silver sedan with tinted windows. The driver was an older man, maybe late 60s, with a weathered face and kind eyes. He had an Eastern European accent, maybe Polish or Czech. When I got in and gave him the hotel address, he didn't say much. Then I looked at his dashboard. There was a photograph facing backward toward the passenger seat, old black and white, maybe from the 1960s. A young couple stood in front of a European street. My heart stopped. It was my grandparents. Both dead for decades. My grandmother since 1998. I was staring at the photo, frozen, when the driver glanced at me in the mirror. Without hesitation, without me saying anything, he said her name. Her real name. A name no one uses anymore. A name hardly anyone in my family even knows. He knew exactly who I was looking at. And that's when everything she thought she knew about her family started to crack. OP's hands were shaking. The driver had just said something that carried weight, something specific, something that couldn't be coincidence. I couldn't look away from the photograph on his dashboard. My grandmother as a young woman. My grandfather with his arm around her waist. Early 1960s, frozen in time. Where did you get this? I told you, I know your family. Who are you? What's your name? He didn't answer, just kept driving. The silence felt heavy. I was doing the math. If my grandmother died in 1998 and he looked late 60s now, he would have been mid-20s back then. Could he have actually known her? How long ago did you know her? I asked. Very long time, he said quietly, when she was not yet married. Those words stopped my heart. He wasn't talking about knowing her as a family friend. The specificity of when she was not yet married, that meant something else. Something he'd been carrying for 60 years. I don't understand what's happening, I whispered. No, I know you do not understand. We rode the rest of the way in silence. The city blurred past. Every corner felt wrong. When he pulled up to my hotel, my heart was pounding so hard I could barely pay him. She managed to hand him bills, way too much money, but she wasn't thinking straight. Her hands were trembling. When she grabbed her bag and scrambled out of that taxi, it took everything she had not to run. And the worst part wasn't the strangeness of the moment itself, or even the eerie coincidence of finding someone who knew her face. It was the certainty in his voice when he said those words. When she was not yet married. Like it was a secret he'd been waiting decades, maybe longer, to tell someone. OP presses harder. I asked him directly, "How do you know who I am?" He didn't answer for a long time, just kept his eyes on the road. When he finally spoke, his voice was careful. "Your grandmother," he said. "I knew her, a very long time ago, many years ago, when she was not yet married." The specificity of that phrase made my blood go cold. Not when she was young, not years back, when she was not yet married. Like those words were all he could safely say, like there was a whole story locked behind them. "What do you mean, not yet married? How did you know her?" I asked, my voice shaking. He glanced at me in the mirror. For just a moment, something broke across his face. Sadness, regret. "Some people," he said quietly, "you do not forget. Even after so many years, even after..." He trailed off and never finished that thought. We drove the rest of the way in silence. No conversation, just traffic noise and GPS directions. When he pulled up to my hotel, he didn't ask for payment. He just looked at me one more time. "You have her eyes," he said. "Be careful who you trust with her name." Then he drove away, and I stood on the sidewalk, shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Readers immediately caught what OP had discovered. The fact that your parents completely shut down and told you never to return, that's not normal protective parent behavior. That's, we know something dangerous and we're terrified it gets out behavior. Your grandmother had a life nobody wanted you to know about. The detail about him waiting, like he was expecting you specifically, sends chills. Was it random that you got his cab? Or did he recognize you from a photo? Did he know you were coming to Barcelona? OP's own replies made it worse. The taxi company having no record of your booking is the actual red flag. Either they're lying to protect the driver or someone made them delete it. This isn't random erasure, it's coordinated. That night, things fell apart. I found out who the taxi driver was, and I understand why my parents are terrified. I called the taxi company that night with shaking hands. My booking number, the pickup time, the route to my hotel, everything. The woman on the phone checked their system, twice. Nothing. No record of any fare from the airport to the Gothic Quarter that afternoon. No cab assigned to my name. Nothing. I started to panic. Either he wasn't a real taxi, or someone had erased the record. I lay in my hotel room all night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I should call the police, call my parents, get on the next plane home. By morning, I decided I couldn't do a week of this. I booked a flight home for the next day and spent those 3 days barely leaving my room. When I got home, I called my mom immediately. I told her everything. The photo, his words, the taxi company's blank system. Her face went white, like all the blood drained out of it. My dad was there, and he just shook his head and walked out of the room. My mom grabbed my hands and said it in this low, terrified voice. "Don't ever ask us about this again. And don't go back to Barcelona. Ever. I'm serious. If you go there again, I won't help you if something happens." That's all she would say. That's all either of them would say. The comment section had thoughts about what that silence meant. I hate to say it, but your family is actively hiding something. The erasure of records, your mother's terror, the way they completely shut you down. This isn't protecting you from a creepy stranger. This is protecting a family secret. The phrase, "when she was not yet married," is so deliberately chosen. He's not saying, "I knew her back then," like an old friend reminiscing. He's implying a specific relationship that existed before your grandfather. That's someone who had a claim on her. Exactly. He kept that photo for 60+ years, waited for, or orchestrated, the moment her granddaughter got in his cab. That's obsession. Someone who never let go. The grandfather was in that photo too, which means your grandfather either knew and accepted it, or didn't, and it destroyed him. Either way, your family buried this so deep the taxi company record just vanished. So here's where the puzzle pieces wouldn't fit. She tried every angle to find him. Called the company, offered them money, even flew back 3 months later hoping to catch a glimpse. Nothing. No booking, no record. It was like he had never existed. But that's not the worst part. He exists. He's still watching for the next face that carries her bloodline. A few weeks later, when the panic attacks had thinned out enough for her to think, she put the story online and came back with an update. I found out who the taxi driver was, and I understand why my parents are terrified. I spent weeks going in circles. My parents shut down every question. But then I found a box in our attic. Old photographs from my grandmother's life before she married my grandfather. And I found a journal entry. My grandmother knew that driver. Not just knew him, she had a relationship with him before she married. The journal was cryptic, but the dates matched. She was young, they were close, and then suddenly, it all stopped. When she married my grandfather, that part of her life was sealed away forever. But the driver remembered. He kept that photograph for 60 years. He kept a memory of a woman he lost, and he kept watch. My mother finally broke down and told me. The driver showed up again 2 years ago at a restaurant where my parents were dining. He recognized my mother by her face. My father nearly had a heart attack. They reported him to police, but there was no crime, no threat, just a man who appeared and then vanished. But now, he's checking airports. My parents are convinced that if he sees me again, he'll try to, I don't even know, collect her legacy? Claim some piece of her? All I know is they've made me swear never to go back to Barcelona, never to search for him, never to acknowledge what my grandmother was before she was my grandmother. And I won't. But I know he's still out there, waiting. The original comment thread had blown up months before that update dropped. Please tell me you're going to update this. This is one of the most genuinely unsettling things I've read in a long time. The way the driver vanished from all records, your parents' reaction, I need to know what you find out about your grandmother. And that's the real horror here. Not a jump scare, not a threat. It's someone watching. Your grandmother's face living in a stranger's memory for 60 years, waiting in a photograph on a dashboard for the moment to confess. Your parents living in fear of a man who has done nothing but remember. Family secrets don't die, they hitchhike. They wait in taxis, they watch airports. That's why stories like this stay with you. Privacy is illusion. The past never dies. Just waiting for the right face in the right car. On to the next one. I realized my smart speaker was listening to me. When I found the camera aimed at my bed, I knew someone in my building was watching.
This is one of those stories where you need context before it hits you the right way. Because when people think about being watched, they think strangers on the internet, privacy violations from miles away. They don't think about someone living down the hallway. My name is Key Turn Detective, and I need to tell you exactly how this started because the timeline matters. About 3 weeks ago, I noticed something weird with my smart speaker. You know, one of those cylindrical ones everyone has now. Mine sits on my nightstand. One night, I'm in bed scrolling my phone, and it just starts talking. Gives me the weather forecast, tells me about traffic, things I never asked for. I figured it glitched, so I didn't think much about it. But then it kept happening. Random activations, no commands from my phone, just the speaker engaging on its own. My roommate said I was being paranoid, but I knew something was off. The pattern was too consistent. It would trigger when I was changing clothes, late at night when I was vulnerable, times when it made no sense for it to activate. I started putting tape over the microphone when I wasn't using it intentionally, which sounds crazy, but I felt watched. That sound you get when a device is listening, I felt it constantly. Then, Tuesday morning, I'm doing laundry on my fire escape, and I notice one of my potted plants, just a small succulent, feels different. It's heavier than it should be. When I picked it up, I felt something shift inside that wasn't soil or roots. I started digging through the pot with my fingers and pulled out a camera. A tiny wireless camera, maybe 2 inches long, lens pointing directly at my bedroom window. I stood there in my pajamas holding this thing, hands shaking. I could look through my window from where I was standing and see my bed. See where the camera's lens had a direct line of sight to everything I did in that room. The back of the device had a small battery pack attached, connected with cable. And when I looked at the metadata, yeah, there was metadata visible. It showed footage dating back almost 4 months. Not days, months. That's when I called Marcus. He came over immediately, and when he examined the camera, this professional-grade surveillance equipment, he confirmed what I was starting to understand. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't someone's prank. Someone living in my building had planned this carefully, had installed a wireless camera in my fire escape planter, had somehow compromised my smart speaker, had been recording me for nearly 4 months. What makes this worse isn't just the camera or the timeline. It's the fact that whoever did this had to walk past her apartment, had to encounter her in the building, had to maintain the equipment. They weren't some distant threat on the internet. They were close, adjacent, known.
When I told Marcus what I'd found, he didn't believe me until I showed him the plant, showed him what was inside it, showed him the way the lens was positioned toward my bedroom window. We locked ourselves in my bedroom after that and examined it for hours under the desk lamp, barely speaking, like it was evidence from an active crime scene. I guess it was. The camera was the size of a USB drive, with a lens barely visible to the naked eye. No manufacturer markings, no serial numbers, nothing. Just clean, anonymous hardware designed to disappear. The battery was a standard CR2032, the kind you find in watch batteries and car fobs. When Marcus tested it with his multimeter, it still had 78% charge left. That's when I understood. A battery like this could run for weeks. Whoever installed this didn't need to come back and maintain it. They could put it in place and forget about it. We pulled the SD card. The oldest file was dated October 14th, 4 months ago. The timestamp showed continuous motion-triggered recording, one frame captured every 2 seconds. Marcus scrolled through the directory silently, and I watched his expression darken with each folder. Thousands of files, months of footage. "There's terabytes of this," he said. I felt my stomach collapse. Not days, not weeks. 4 entire months of someone watching me sleep, shower, change clothes. 4 months of footage stored on a device hidden in a plant on my fire escape. And we still didn't know how long the smart speaker had been compromised, or if there were other cameras. The realization was suffocating. 4 months. That meant October, before the speaker started acting strange, before I suspected anything. This device had been running the whole time, capturing everything, and I'd walked past the plant on my fire escape maybe 50 times without knowing what was watching me from inside it. But then they looked closer at the network logs. That's when the investigation turned from unsettling to horrifying. My friend pulled up the router logs and started running traces on the access points. At first, we were looking for something external, some distant IP trying to break in. But the more he dug, the more it became clear that this wasn't coming from outside. The connection was local. The compromised speaker was being accessed from within the building itself. He ran signal strength analysis on the wireless access. Whoever had remote access to my device wasn't even trying to hide it through VPNs or proxy chains. They were close. Close enough that the signal told a story. We narrowed it down based on network topology. It had to be someone in one of the units adjacent to mine or directly above or below. My friend started checking which apartments had similar router models, looking at network traffic patterns. The paranoia started creeping in then. Every time I heard footsteps in the hallway, every time the elevator dinged, I wondered if it was him. Was it the guy from 412? The couple below? The woman upstairs? I'd passed these people in the hallway dozens of times, made small talk in the lobby. One of them had been watching me sleep. The comment section exploded when OP shared the network findings. People finally understood what she was realizing. Whoever this was, they lived in her building. This is absolutely horrifying, and I'm shaking reading this. The fact that he had 14 cameras and was documenting entire other buildings for future surveillance. How many other potential victims are there? Did the police give any indication of the total scope? This is exactly the nightmare scenario with smart home devices. Most people don't understand that default passwords and cloud integration mean these things are just open doors. No network isolation, no security audits required. It's insane that this is allowed. OP posted an update. They found his notebook. He had 4 years of names, addresses, and surveillance notes. At least 3 other buildings were planned. Police traced it to Unit 412 directly above me. The warrant came through and I watched the search from the station. I've passed this guy in the hallway dozens of times. We've made eye contact. He looked ordinary. His notebook was on his desk. 14 cameras. 14! Hidden throughout the building over 4 years. His apartment was infrastructure. Monitors, hard drives, organized files with addresses and positions and window angles. My name was in there. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a system. He had sketches for 3 other buildings already planned. They're notifying all residents now. They're contacting the other buildings. Comments flooded in, focusing on the notebook. This is exactly the nightmare scenario with smart home devices. Most people don't understand that default passwords and cloud integration mean these things are just open doors. After reading this thread, I'm dismantling my entire smart home setup this weekend. I've got 3 speakers, a Ring doorbell, networked cameras, all of it out. The convenience is not worth this risk. OP, I'm so sorry. The notebook is the nightmare part here. This isn't a voyeur acting on impulse. He had a documented system, was planning expansion, taking reconnaissance photos. Are the other buildings being notified about the surveillance? Did he say anything to police when arrested? Did he explain why or claim innocence? OP answered what everyone wondered. Did he say anything to police when arrested? Did he explain why or claim innocence? And the investigation continued, uncovering more. The arrest came through within days. Then the full scope emerged. They found his notebook. He had 4 years of names, addresses, and surveillance notes. At least 3 other buildings were planned. When they searched Unit 412, they found his notebook. 4 years of names, addresses, building layouts, surveillance patterns. Our building had 14 hidden cameras. But that was just the start. Police connected him to at least 3 other buildings using the same methodology. 8 residents across all locations. I was one of 8 people being systematically documented like data points. I moved out 2 weeks later, deleted every smart device, every camera, every microphone, got a restraining order. The police said he'd been doing this for 4 years, collecting our routines, knowing when we showered, when we slept, who visited. 4 years of being studied by someone who lived 30 feet away. The comment section understood what it meant to be watched like that. I'm genuinely sorry. You did everything right. Trusted your instincts, got your friend to investigate, reported to police. This is a massive violation and you're going to need support processing it. Please reach out to a trauma-informed therapist if you can. Did anyone in the building think he was creepy or off before this came out? Like behavioral red flags? I'm asking because I'm trying to figure out if there's a warning sign profile here or if he just seemed completely normal. I'm genuinely sorry. You did everything right. Trusted your instincts, got your friend to investigate, reported to police. This is a massive violation and you're going to need support processing it. Please reach out to a trauma-informed therapist if you can. Thank you. I'm seeing someone now, but I passed him in hallways dozens of times, held doors, shared an elevator, the whole time this was happening. What sticks isn't the cameras or network breach. It's that violation can live right next to you, hold a door, exist in a space you marked safe, and you won't know until it's happened. OP is moving forward now, but that proximity to the predator will stay with her. And that is the last story for today.